Welcome to Sanguine Arts Locavart, the podcast that features interviews with local Twin Cities artists. This activity is made possible by the voters of Minnesota through a grant from the Metropolitan Regional Arts Council, thanks to a legislative appropriation from the Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. I am your host, interdisciplinary performance artist Mary Prescott. Today we are speaking with Tommy Franklin. Tommy is a filmmaker, writer, and producer. His documentary, You Don't Know My Name, received support from Sundance, ITVS, Ford Foundation, Catapult Film Fund, The Marshall Project, and many others. Tommy's development fellowships include Film Independent, Firelight, Doc Lab, CNN, and Duke University. He was shortlisted for a Creative Capital Award and continues his growth with the Jerome Hill Artist Fellowship. Tommy's drama pilot, Intrepid, was a finalist for Sundance's Episodic Lab, and he was a participant of Sundance's BIPOC Mentorship Program. With the community, he collaborates in grassroots organizing to produce nonfiction content. A survivor of incarceration, born in prison, and having served time in adulthood, Tommy works along creative culture lines to radically reimagine power structures, focusing on Black liberation. He's sure he wants to do this. Welcome, Tommy. Thanks so much for speaking with us today.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the invitation and that introduction. You make it seem so much cooler what I've done thus far, just hearing you say it.
And I even had to leave a lot out because there was so much in there.
I'm trying.
You're doing an amazing job. I want to start by asking you about your big 7-year documentary film project, You Don't Know My Name. Can you share with us what this film is about and what you were seeking to learn with the project?
Yeah, You Don't Know My Name. It's my first feature film. It's a documentary, and it's about me searching for the identity of my birth mother, who birthed me in prison over 40 years ago. And I decided, uh, I decided to start searching for identity not that long ago in 2019,
Mhm.
relative to, having lived that much life so far. And I actually started searching and wasn't even like 0% in my mind to make a film involving that. And I was just getting lunch with a buddy. I was in Chicago and like updating him that I was gonna, be searching for my mother, relatives, etc. And that day I'm having lunch, this guy happens to be a documentarian. So I started. He had a look on his face, and he got all excited and started to light up as I was telling him the story of the journey I was taking. And he was like, "Come on, man, you got to make a film. You got to make a film." And yeah, of course, he was biased. And his name's Justin Jones. He's a filmmaker out of Chicago. And right then, that was probably like late summer 2019, and then by fall of 2019, my podcast partner Andrew Benda, we were in Minneapolis. We flew to Chicago, met up with Justin, hopped in his pickup truck, and road tripped it to Indianapolis because I did like ancestry, and then these first cousins reached out to me and said, "Hey,
Hmm.
you popped up. Your
Hmm.
family." And I was like, "Oh, well, I'm pretty impulsive." I was like, "We'll come out and meet you. Oh, and by the way, making a film." So kind of
Yeah.
like the decision to make the film was, that fall, and it kind of just started growing, and it's like okay, now like once I decide to make a film, internally and creatively, there's just things speaking, wanting to get out, and then I got to figure out how to structure that, build it, just keep ideating, and then it was off to the races, and it's been an almost 7-year journey of making that film.
Wow. Were you already a filmmaker, or was that sort of on the suggestion of your friend? Or
Yeah, I was already like, I love to write scripts, and I had made, let's see, at that point, I'd made just only two short films, fiction, was about to make a third. And, but my short films, I mean, like, no money,
right?
little to no money, credit card, friends chipping in, down for the cause, passionate, local, all of that stuff, under resourced completely. And those are, again, just things I want to get out of my head, off my chest.
Mm.
I've made about four short films to date. that were fiction. You know, half of them are quirky and weird, the other half are more dramatic character pieces. But I had never thought about making anything nonfiction up until that point,
Mm,
and you know, I don't, I like documentaries, but like I'm a huge dreamer. I have 3 to 4 dreams every night. I like
mm,
just being immersed in you know, the minds of other people who create things out of clear, you know, out of clear blue sky, so to speak. And yeah, so the documentary was new territory, and immediately folks are like, you know, you got to apply for like grants and fellowships to have a chance at making this. Oh, by the way, unless you're rich, we know that's not the case. So, yeah, I had to learn to write all these applications, and it became like a job. And I wasn't like confident, and I didn't know how to get it right, so to speak. Only thing I did know is that I love to write, and I just had to figure out how to translate the skills that I'm relatively good at in, like, you know, writing scripts, screenplays, what have you, figure out how to translate that skill into begging for money.
mm,
And you know, then I'm in the same boat as everybody else who is trying to like get funding and support for all these different important works and different mediums of art and disciplines. Clearly, you know that in a empirical system that doesn't really value art making as a society compared to other cultures and governments even around the world. So it's been an interesting learning experience to say the least.
hmm. Yeah. I mean, you obviously got very good at that very quickly. Finding support for your work because you have such a long list of accolades.
Yeah, I mean, it's I've been very fortunate and blessed to be supported. You know, obviously a lot of things go into it, timing, and you know, maybe some of what I wrote was appealing enough to get people to believe in it and in the project. And I just know that like, hey, I'm gonna try to just be myself, speak my truth. I tend to write the way I talk, and it works in my favor sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't. But I always like to say that everything I didn't get is the same reason I got it. Because you know, I try to just maintain as authentic voice as I can because I think for the end goal of any of our projects we're trying to make, for it to be as good as we want it to be and for it to resonate as much as we'd like it to resonate, uh, you know, kind of like not filtering it down to anything other than what's really speaking to you is kind of the way to go,
Mhm,
in my opinion.
mhm. I wanna get back into the content of your documentary.
Hmm.
You said that you did this 23andMe journey to
Mm,
Indianapolis to meet relatives that had reached out to you. Tell us
hmm.
what you found out.
Yeah. So the first time I did Ancestry, which is whatever the part of the twin monopoly of DNA tests, and yeah, I met these relatives in Indianapolis. They turns out, you know, I grew up in Minnesota. I was adopted at 2 months old and brought to Minnesota as a baby, but I was born in the South. And then I'm learning from these relatives, like all my family's from New Orleans, right? New Orleans, Louisiana, which is funny because I'd been there, you know, 2 or 3 times before I found out this information, and I always had a gravitational pull toward this city. I always have been a jazz lover, so coincidentally, that was kind of nice news, and you know, versus
Yeah,
no
yeah.
disrespect to you know, name a city that might not be as appealing as New Orleans. I was like, oh, that
You're
sounds
like, "At least I
intriguing.
got a good one."
That was the best, arguably the best city in the country. Um,
It's
and
a great
it's
town.
it's a very special place. You know, I think that I think you can go to any major metropolis and something while you're there will be like, this reminds me of this city. I think when you go to New Orleans, there's nothing that makes you go, this reminds me of this other American city. That's I think what's unique about it. But yeah,
Mhm,
so I meet these relatives and honestly, like, I'm learning things, and now that the film is just recently completed in in April, there's a lot I can't say because I don't wanna spoil things,
mm,
but I will say that on the discovery of relatives, on one hand, it's deep, and there's a tremendous amount of reflection that goes into every little bit of information you learn, and
mm,
that takes time
mhm,
in general, but also because I'm a slow processor, and then on the other hand, it's been quite the roller coaster. It can, it involved and still involves a lot of emotional ups and downs.
For sure, yeah.
If you think about like just the film itself, it's like who is my mother? It's like a who done it. It's a bit of a mystery. Some of
Mhm.
it has that feel of like being on this like hunt for information, and it gets, you know, I wouldn't call it a thriller, but it's suspenseful at times. And so yeah, it's kind of like whereas you have like a whodunit like Knives Out. It's like who's the killer, and ours is like the reverse. It's like who's the creator of life,
Mhm.
right, versus the taker of life.
Yep.
And so yeah, it's culminated in about 6.5 years completing it for a lot of reasons. Real life is happening. You need funding to produce it, to shoot it, assemble your team slowly but surely, and I've been blessed to have the right people get involved, want to get involved, whether it's from crew to producing team. We're a small bunch, but we're headed
Small
in the
but
right
mighty.
direction. Yeah,
Yeah.
celebrating each small win along the way and being there for each other when the challenges arise.
So your relatives do know that you're creating this documentary. Are
Mhm.
they kind of following along the journey with you?
Yeah, I kind of update the ones that I've met. I mean, I've met a lot of extended family, even like, so I met this family in Indianapolis. They tell me about family, and they're telling me parts of the migration stories of family from New Orleans to other, cities like Indianapolis, Los Angeles. They're going back as far as like, most of us who have our last names in this country, we got them from some slave owner. They're going back as far as like, uh, they're like the Carbo line, like they were Italian slave owning family judges and mobsters, and it's like, oh, okay, so now you have this black line of this Carbo family, and you have this other line of this white line of the Carbo family, that the Italian whatever gangster side, mobster side. And I was hearing anecdotes of like, if the black side in this country is an oppressed people, often are poor people, especially in the 60s, 70s. I mean, you could easily say all the way up until now. But I would hear anecdotes of how like the black carbos, if they happen to pass through Las Vegas, they got special treatment.
Mhm.
If you know what I mean. And
Mm.
I'm like,
Mhm.
you can't tell a filmmaker that. I'm having these imaginations of the movie Casino and blah 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 blah. Right. But so yeah, I actually met more extended relatives I was in Los Angeles, and met more relatives. And again, there's some stuff I can't spoil now that the film's done.
I won't
But
ask you how it ends up.
I'll give you this much, because you saw a little bit. Um, in this search for the identity of my mother, at some point, I found the identity of my father and a sister, and the story has obviously progressed since then. And again, folks will just have to see the film. So this
Teaser,
is the
teaser.
ending. Yeah, the ending is special and
I'm
probably what
sure.
you can't anticipate.
Well, that makes me very intrigued.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's awesome, I love it. I mean, you're doing the real filmmaker thing, you know? Like, getting people
Yeah,
so intrigued and interested. That's
it's hard to
awesome.
talk about too because I've never like made this a full length feature documentary versus like with a short film or fiction. You can throw any amount of teasers, plot points out. Is you kind of like more innately know
Mhm. Mhm.
ways not to spoil something that's like just it's a little less consequential to fiction. It's like, oh, I just made this up. And then other parts are is like, oh, okay. But it's cool. Like making a documentary is grounding because when you can step out of the creative part, the funnest part, you can be grounded by the realities that, oh, you still have to fundraise to, yes, we finished the film. We have to still fundraise to get the film out there, etc.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, in the film, you share many clips of your youngest daughter. Can you
Hmm.
tell us about her and what you're exploring with her in the film?
Yeah, I think because it's this search, and I like to say anyone who's informed that this film is existing and that this journey of trying to find my mother existed along the way. I always encourage people to join the search party, so to speak. Well, my children, they're closest to me searching, so they were just in it. They were just like curious. They're around it the most. All the ups and downs, the waiting, the when things are moving, they're witness to all of that, unlike anyone else. And so my youngest daughter is she has, you know, some artistic aspirations and a lot of artistic curiosities, she's very creative. So I mean she's credited. She actually has more credits in the film than anyone else. Since the age I started making the film when she was I want to say 6
Uh-huh.
and she's 11 now. And yeah, like so she's shot. She's been the person holding the camera in multiple scenes. She, has we've weaved in some like kind of dreamlike scripted scenarios, some hybrid stuff. She's been on set as part of the crew as safety crew. She's been script supervisor. She's like I think she's got like 4 credits in the film.
She's an amazing 11-year-old filmmaker.
More than anything else, yeah. And she thought she wanted to be a filmmaker. Recently she's kind of like, I kind of like this in front of the camera stuff too, like getting into like theater because I had her going to children's theater camps, and now she's
Okay.
like, I like acting too. But she loves to draw, sketch, paint, all of that. And luckily, because Minnesota's arts community is very, very rich in wonderful talent and good souls making amazing art that she's been exposed to since she was an infant. She's around it like I can, and we have Art of World. You can just immerse them in that every year. That just passed last weekend, and so I'm very lucky that she's. I will shout out places like Public Functionary and Leslie and Ryan and Mike and Trisha over there who have curated so like countless spaces for me to just pop up with my child and for her to experience all the amazing artists that they all collaborate with, and that's a big part of it.
Mm.
Beyond just taking them to museums and shows and stuff like that.
It sounds like that her involvement with the film kinda came naturally, just because she was around it when you were creating and developing and asking the questions and etcetera. Do you think that she is seeking the same answers that you are with any of that questioning, or what is important for you to share with her?
Yeah, I think what's important is I clearly like I have my questions whether I got to talk about it or write it down and stuff like that. I like to check in and just ask her like, what questions do you have at this stage of the
Mhm.
journey, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Along the way, and I filmed her, like camera's just around. So if I have a question, I'm just gonna bleep, record. I'm gonna ask a question. You never know what's gonna come out of her mouth, and it could serve the story. Because at the end of it, we're living life, but as creators, as filmmakers, it's like, yeah, if you have the opportunity to record and you're making something that is just a large scale project, yeah, and of course, the 100 plus hours, it's only going to go into less than 2 hours, but you just never know. Like,
Yeah.
she's curious, and I like what she has to say
Yeah.
from her, perspective and point of view, and her thoughtfulness and her curiosities being verbalized.
Mhm.
That yeah, she always just has her own questions at any stage in the journey. From not just like, oh, what have we learned? What more information do we know on this search? She also just likes to ask questions about like how is the film coming and what's next? Like what do you have to do
The
next to get the
practical
film?
stuff.
Yeah, like how do you get this? No, now what? The film's done. She's like, now what? How do we? Where are we going? What festival we world premiering at? I was like, yeah, good question.
She's gonna be your manager.
Yeah, yeah, she would gladly do that. She's gonna be like, how much? She'll be googling how much percent.
Funny. I also really enjoyed watching her talk, about those questions that you're asking. She has this, like, beautiful, like, logical, pure mind and way of thinking about things. She's like, "Of course it couldn't be this because this," or like, "This is what it's like, obviously," you know, and
Hmm.
just, seeing her kind of make sense of, the information and the questions is really really special, I think.
Yeah, I would like to take credit for, like, having come up with the shot where I was just asking it I was just telling her, "Right, yeah, I think that was the first time I told her I was born in prison."
Mm,
And I would like to take credit for the shot of when I told her and when she's, like, reacting to it, and she's saying, "It doesn't make any sense. You can't be born in prison. There's no nurses in prison, blah, blah,
yeah.
blah."
Yeah.
And she's just like, this just doesn't make any sense." And she's just articulating of how she thinks it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And she happens to be upside down,
Yeah.
right? And it's
Yeah.
just like, yo, this doesn't make sense. And you're visually seeing things ain't right. Things are upside down. And that yeah, and tangentially, she's a big fan of the Stranger Things.
During the process of investigating your birth mother, you met a woman named Alicia Roach. Can you tell me about her?
Yeah, so I mean, Alicia and I crossed paths because, again, way before there was ever a seed of an idea to make a film, I've met and been involved with prison doulas around the country, but starting here in Minnesota with Minnesota Prison Doula Project, whom I met in 2016. Eventually, in early 2024, is when I met Alicia at one of the National Prison Doula certification training. So this
Mm,
prison doula organization would, train people who are already doulas in community to become, prison doulas to go in and provide to support pregnant parenting people inside jails and prisons to, obviously help protect their rights and help things result in way better healthcare outcomes mentally and physically for both parent and baby.
mm,
And Alicia came to one of the trainings in Milwaukee, is where I first met her, and she just has an amazing story that you it, get into some of it in the film, but like almost 20 years ago, she was incarcerated, and one of her children she had to give birth while incarcerated, separated in the ways that are too many, just like too many tragic reasons that even ever happens. This type of
mm,
family separation,
mm,
and she came across this prison doula program, and these prison doulas, like 15 years after that ordeal for her that she endured. But what was so like amazing to learn was that while she was incarcerated, she kind of came up with her own plan to provide like doula services to incarcerated birthing people, right?
mm,
Before she ever knew these networks of prison doulas existed and these organizations existed. And then she came across this organization. I was like, where have y'all been all my life? I wrote this manifest. I wrote this document like while locked up. And so she, you know, in that way found more community of people who were very passionate about like finding justice in this super oppressive and at times barbaric system, the prison system. And then she like had already had this, you know, these goals and this idea. And she was came to the prison certification, dual certification training, and just immediately gained, everyone there is gaining skills. Again, doula, prison doula, they're different. They're gaining these skills to go in and provide this support and services. But she was primed to take any of those skills just in that weekend of training
yeah,
and like off to the races for her. Like
yeah.
she, as of summer 2025, started her own prison doula program in the very prison she gave birth in
Wow,
in Portland, Oregon. Yeah.
wow.
So I mean, incredible story. Like mother has six sons, right? In Portland, she's from Portland, and I've spent time with her in Portland, um, whether it was filming or not filming, and I've spent time with her in other places, from Alabama to Wisconsin, around the prison doula stuff. And oh, man, she's an amazing friend, and she's an amazing human, so powerful, like oh, incredibly smart. And I just, like we connect on a lot of levels, but Um, we connect especially because we just really value like honesty and realness,
Mm,
even in the moment. Um, and so yeah, her story like deserves a lot. Like it was like this film could be about just prison doors. This film could be about just my family that I'm finding. This could be about a lot of things. And um, I think with these women, I've met a lot of women who've had to undergo family separation in this way, and hearing their stories. And I'm a child. Yes, I'm an adult child. When like children are reunited with their mothers, if they are, often they're much, much younger than me in my well and 4 or 5 decades into life. But as a child of family separation in that way, and she's a mother who's experienced that, and I've met other mothers like in life, but also in the film at times, we get to hold these mirrors up to one another and,
mhm,
not just be there for each other, but also just if we're having a moment or a thought uh, that derives from like an emotional tension in any way to say, hey, do you think this woman out there, this mystery woman, do you think she's thinking of me? And that mother can assure me, yes, of course. And like if a mother ever asks me, do you think my child's thinking of me? Again, I'm that mirror and in a way, and I can say, of course they are, right?
yeah,
We
yeah,
just know. We just know. I mean, there's a lot of ways that that's proven, but also these people who are living through it, they
yeah,
know.
yeah,
So when they're assuring me, I of course I'm gonna believe them, and
yeah,
that can help me hold on to a little bit of hope, etc.
mhm, mhm,
And so it's a beautiful community, and we cherish the time we do get to spend together.
mm. Wow, what an amazing person she must be. You also encountered 2 other prison doulas, Erica Garrity and Chantel Norris. Can you tell me about them?
Yeah, Erica and Chantel, they're like in a lot of ways masterminds and leaders of this what we could call an underground movement. This prison doula. There's prison doulas. Far and near for sure. This is, and, it's a mass incarceration issue. It's a healthcare issue. It's definitely a women's issue, gender issue. So these are, typically nonprofit organizations we're talking about, but because, not to just be in the binary, but because it's a women's issue, it's the least funded issue around mass incarceration.
Mm, mhm,
I used to organize, like professionally in grassroots spaces, mostly like focused on removing barriers to formerly incarcerated people when it came to jobs, housing, democracy, right? And I had spent many years conducting my own personal survey to all the most grassroots movement workers and organizers, to the Van Joneses of the world. And I don't say his name in favor, but again, stature wise, that whole spectrum of people working to tackle a lot of these mass incarceration issues. And I'd asked them all for years, what are your top 10 mass incarceration issues? And never once was prison birth in their top 10, let alone like often never just mentioned at all or
yeah,
acknowledged
yeah,
outside of these reproductive rights organizers, workers, prison doulas, etc. And Erica and Chantel have been doing it for, well over a decade, 2 decades, and in such a territory that's so underfunded, they had every right to give up every single year. Like
mm,
no one would have faulted them. And a lot of people who are amazing also doing that work have had to give up for that very reason. No funding, not enough
mm,
funding.
mhm,
And they kept going and they're still going. Erica and Chantel still going. And then other, again, mothers who've experienced these things firsthand are also prison doers now, and they're still going, and they're still leading the charge in a lot of ways. From and including Autumn Mason, who's an amazing prison doula and community, organizer, and lucky to have her in community here in Minneapolis, St. Paul. So, yeah, these people are resilient as it gets, because they want to end prison birth in America. Like that's their ultimate goal. And nothing is going to knock them off their path of doing it. They know how unique the work is, and you can't just replace people who've been doing it this long because there's so much embodied knowledge trauma, ways like skills to cope with that secondhand trauma.
Yeah.
If they haven't experienced it firsthand, that you can't just replace like you're replacing a CEO, you know?
Right, right, right.
And so the fact that they're not giving up is like a service to literally all of humankind.
Mm.
So these are some amazing, amazing folks.
Oh, man. I can't wait to learn more about them, and they're in the film, right?
Hmm,
Mhm.
hmm.
Now that you wrapped the film, what are your next steps with it?
Yes, the fun part, of course. The funnest part was creating, no matter how hard it is. And then, documentary. What noticed through, the fellowships, the journey of applying for support, grants, funding, etc., and meeting amazing artists and filmmakers and documentary makers and community over the years. It's tricky. Like, all these industries and arts industries are just, funding has dropped out in a lot of ways across industries. But like fiction, if you're making a feature film, you get your budget or you don't make the film. Like typically, right? So 2 million, 5 million, 100 million. Once you get that budget, you're getting the budget for the whole film. Documentary, it's piecemeal all the way, be it start to
Mhm.
finish. Unless you're making some cookie cutter, boring slop, you're not getting an upfront full budget, and it's probably a bad sign if you do. Your movie's probably gonna suck.
Who's holding those purse strings?
In the context of documentary making, if you're getting like $2 million, here you go make your documentary. It's probably gonna be really bad.
I can think of one in
Because a
recent
lot,
memory.
because like a lot of independent, and those might even still be considered independent films, but like a lot of independent doc making for sure is just uphill, nonstop. You just take your breaks, you take your breaths, you rest when you need to. It's been a lot of the reasons even your most well-funded documentary, even if it does have $1 to $2 million eventually, it still might take 7 to 10 years on average to make a one single documentary film. So I mean, being bumping up against 7 years, I consider myself like pretty solid. Like I'm right at the lower end of the average. So I feel very fortunate and very blessed. There's films that I'm a bigger fan of than my own, way bigger fan of than my own, that still need a lot of support, that I want to see supported all the way. That is, the nature of the game. Luckily, community, we have each other to like root each other on. And so now that I
Mhm.
finally finished the creative piece as a whole, um, the next phase is just a different thing to fundraise for, which is like we want there to be robust community and impact screenings beyond, if we're fortunate enough to have any amount of a film festival run. Like we still want to world premiere at a film festival and, be showing in that context as well, because there's nothing I love more than sitting in a theater and watching a film. And I love experiencing that from all these filmmakers whose films I go see, whether I
Mhm.
know about them or just am learning about them and just walking to the theater. I want to have that experience with film goers and film lovers. And then in a very important way, like bring it to, again, all these spaces of cultural workers, organizers, reproductive rights, adoptee organizations, like universities, that we want to show it in a lot of different spaces and, kind of curtail our impacts, efforts and goals to these unique spaces. And so that's kind of like the big push currently, is find a place to launch the film somewhere in the world, whether it's international, US premiere, and then like, right off the back of that, really ramp up with our kind of like a screening series outside of festivals to just bring it to the people, so to speak, because everyone should see this film. Like again, this issue, we're going to work to end prison work no matter what. But I believe in the power of art. I believe art should never be left to the wayside. If there's four legs on a table of like societal health, one of those legs definitely has to be art. And visually, when it comes to some issues, it's also helpful to see it on screen and the power of that film can have.
Mhm.
Film has changed me in a lot of ways. I don't think like one film is going to change the world, but I do think that we have worlds inside of us, and so one film can change our inner worlds,
Yeah,
depending on what film we witness as an individual and what it can do for us throughout life.
for sure. Wow, that's so well said. Thank you for putting that into words.
I don't know what I'm saying. I just, appreciate you. I appreciate you just listening.
Do you have plans to screen You Don't Know My Name in the Twin Cities?
Yes, we do. Again, that will hinge on just timing. Ideally, if we can launch the film in, say, early fall somewhere
Mhm,
outside of the Twin Cities, then we'd be looking to bring it to the Twin Cities sometime later in the fall, whether it's like a Twin Cities Film Festival or again a more curated space with community comrades and collaborators where there's conversations happening. So we're gonna make it amazing, whether it's in collaboration with a festival or some other partner organizations that are interested in screening the film here in
mhm,
town. Likely over the span of some time, it wouldn't be just one screening because we want to bring folks out. This is my hometown, and I'm very fortunate that folks want to come support and see the film. So I think it's a great opportunity it being my hometown to have some a variety of screenings that have different feels to them, that have different folks coming through, and opportunities for just all of us to connect in community, which still, for whatever reasons, we all have our reasons why we might be connecting less or more in a physical space because of the madness that is the pandemic and just the world
mhm.
doing weird things along the way.
I
you
mean,
know
there's a
so
lot of weird things.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you'll be at one of the screenings, and we look forward to when we can ramp that up and more publicly be excited about that.
Yeah, for sure. I look forward to that. In dedicating the last 7 years to creating this piece, have you
Mhm.
found any closure or peace?
Yeah, the there was always I can definitively answer mostly yes to that now that the film's done, but then kind of like in the latter half of these 7 years, it became pretty evident and clear that in the film, everyone's again can't spoil the end, but I'll say that as a creator, as an artist, yes. Otherwise, the film wouldn't be finished, right? So I could have pushed up against that 10 years, but I think I felt good at the vision, right? So even though it's documentary, there's still essentially a script to it. The way I envision the film to go, the way I collaborate with the editor of the film, Simone. Simone Leclerc is an artist, filmmaker, writer here in the Twin Cities as well, and especially I mean in any film really, if it has some weight to it and an abundance of materials gathered, so in terms of things we shot, it can go one of like 4 or 5 directions at in the edit, and I think we honed in on a direction that felt good for us and true to the vision that I set out and developed along the way over the course of the years, and it felt true to who I am as I am experiencing this in real life, right?
Mhm,
Felt
mhm,
true to my community,
mm,
which had to be, it's trigonometry at times, right? Like, because it's like, oh, let's honor this character in my entire life's journey, right? But how does it fit the plot in this area or in this third act or second act or in a storyline? And I think navigating that with someone as thoughtful, creative, and smart as Simone, and figuring that out together, and then also having just like my producers Rajul and Samantha supporting me in a lot of intangible ways. It's gotten me to a place where I feel good. Granted, while making the film, like 2 summers ago, I just took like 3 days to go make another short film to distract myself from the documentary.
We all
So,
need a project to distract us from the project.
oh yes, making another film while making a film is weird, but it was so necessary.
Yeah.
And yeah, we feel good. Like we feel really good for these next stages. And like as I enter this next stage, I'm collaborating with people who weren't working on the film necessarily during that huge chunk of the
Mm.
production, right? And so I'm honored in having opportunities to work more. Like Samantha Steele, who's an artist, filmmaker, and producer who's out of Europe, living in France right now. Like we started working together just a year ago, basically, and like the time we're spending building out this next phase has just been a joy and a pleasure because I really respect the way she thinks about this issue. She has some personal connections to the issue, so she's very very passionate and incredibly brilliant. And so like I'm just excited that and bringing some closure to that phase of the process opens up more space to create things that are still attached to the project that still are the project but in new ways and creating new pathways and collaborating with some amazing people.
Mm. Amazing. You've got everything figured out.
Nope. No, no, don't wait. Still fundraising. Don't say that.
It's all gonna fall into place. I just
But when I really say join the search party, I mean it. Like not don't just join the newsletter. Join the search party. In that, again, let's see, I can't say it, but just yeah, good things will come the more people get involved. Because at the end of the day, I want to bring around to the issue. I want everyone to know about prison birth. I want everyone
yeah.
to be on the in prison birth in America train.
Mhm.
The more people that get on it, the sooner we can do it.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, it sounds like this is just gonna make a huge impact on all of that happening. So thank you for creating such a powerful piece.
I believe in the power of film to just open up these conversations a little more.
Yeah, for sure. I'm curious, I have the same question as your daughter, which is, what are you gonna do next?
Yeah. Okay. Like outside this project, whenever that's wrapped up in 2 or 3 years. In the meantime, because creatively I have more space, I'll have
Mhm,
more space to give things a harder go. I said I'd never make another documentary again. Which there might be in particular, probably not another documentary feature film again, because I do have ideas. They just happen to not be features or that are nonfiction. I have an idea. I have like two kind of docu-series ideas.
mhm,
Um, one could be anthology, and the other one is more limited. One of them has to definitely do with people in prison and then exploring humor and vulnerability in ways that I don't think have been explored in text or film, especially. That's an interesting. So it's a project about laughter and processing emotions through humor
mm,
for incarcerated people.
mm,
And that one's called One Laugh at a Time. Because in prison you're like get through it one day at a time.
mhm,
Um, but that's all. We'll talk about when we're having coffee. I can tell you more about that. That is something I'm developing and figuring out how to make a reality at the outset. Hopefully, like I can really ramp up working on that toward the end of this year, early next year. And then there's just like a rock doc I want to make. That again, I'll tell you over coffee, but it's a fun thing, and it's still around humanity and connection, around like local music performance, but by local I mean different localities around the country and the world, and
mm, mhm,
kind of want to get into. I'm a music lover, and I kind of think I have this idea how to get into a niche part of that world, um, in a bit of an Anthony Bourdain-esque way that I think
mm,
could be interesting. So I think those are two things I'm really excited about developing a little more deeply,
mhm,
and actually pursuing. And then
mhm,
just my scripts. I love to write films. There's a lot of scripts I picked up and haven't finished, or finished drafts put down. Every other year, I kind of with this writers group started going on a writers retreat every August, starting last year, so it's new, but it helps reinvigorate some of those
Hmm, sure.
projects where I'm putting pen to paper. So I think there's like a full plate of things I want to either dust off or continue building that I'm very excited about. And so, yeah, I just feel blessed that there's a lot of things still inside me screaming to get out, and I want to like water those plants, so to speak,
Hmm.
while continuing this project to the end of its current life. But
Yeah.
I think there's some space creatively to open up and really work on some things that I'm very very excited about, and very
Mm.
excited to talk about when the time comes with community. And I'll be, we're in community here in the Twin Cities, so we'll definitely talk more about that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That sounds awesome. I'm so glad too for you to have all of this kind of refreshed creative space to do more exploration.
Yeah,
That's gonna
thank
be
you.
fun. Yeah. I wanted to talk about a short film that you made, Daredevil, which seems like a pretty big departure from the documentary. Can you
Hmm.
tell us a little bit about that film?
Yeah, that's the one I shot over 3 days in 100-degree heat in the marsh up north in August of 2024. I had written, um, I'd been sitting on like two or three more short scripts at the time, and my first few shorts were like anywhere between like 13 and 23 minutes or whatever. And I'm like, I just gotta make one under 10 minutes, man. I just gotta make an 8, 9 minute short. And I think I wrote this one of like 8, 9 pages. It probably ended up being 10 minutes. So I still qualify it as my, it ended up being my shortest short film ever. And it's a drama. Like I go back and forth. I have these weird, quirky comedy stuff and then more dramatic pieces. And this is like a deep drama about a little bit of childhood trauma, but also a bit of a bit of a thriller, childhood revenge thriller, if you will. Um, touching on some deeper topics, but also just like being able to rest in the whimsicality, if that's a word, of children
Mhm,
and how they should be allowed to be children, but at the same time, they have to sometimes have their wits about them to survive. And
mm.
feel good existing and feeling as safe as possible. So yeah, it's a I don't want to say fun film. It was fun making it. That I had two child actors that had never acted for film, and it was a pleasure working with them, including their parents, because I didn't have to work with their parents all that much, which
Hmm.
is like quite
I mean,
it's pretty amazing. Like,
yeah.
they gave us space. They gave their own children space. They gave me space, the crew space. They believe in their child. They believed in the project, and, working with child actors, if you've never done it, there's gonna be challenges, but I'd say it was an o overall, like, 10 out of 10 experience,
Yeah. From what I
and
could
one of
see, they seemed, like, really on point. I was like, "Wow, they're great."
like, oh, yeah, we had, like, 3 days, and, it wasn't easy, and we had 1 day when we were up north to get the outdoor stuff up there in the water, and 1 day, and there was a thunderstorm in the middle of that. Like, we only had 1 day, and then it started thunderstorming, like, torrential rain for, like, an hour, and it was like, "Ooh, we're losing light, like, this ain't." We're, like, hour and a half up north, we're like, "We might have to just call it a day." We didn't want us none of us wanted to say it out loud, and we were getting nervous. And one of the kids' parents was like, "We're here, man. Let's wait this shit out. Like let's wait this storm out. Like let's hope it's passing. It's moving so fast, it might clear." And it ended up clearing, and then we ran out there and just got everything we could, and Henry, who played one of the characters, he ended up playing a character in the documentary. Um, he was 13 when we shot the short film Daredevil, and he was 14 last summer when we shot some scenes that are in that are now in the documentary. And so I was like, this kid's so good.
Mm, mhm,
Um, he plays like a 14-year-old version of me in some like quote unquote imagined memories scenes in
mhm.
the documentary.
Mhm.
And so yeah, like I love when you can like work with people more than once because you find your rhythms, you find your camaraderie and your passions, and you sync up when you need to
Mhm.
creatively, and it can go further than just one project. So I really love that about the creative process.
Mm. And actually, what a cool thing for him to be able to know you and he's playing you, you know? Like, that would be a
Yeah,
pretty cool thing.
it was pretty funky. It was
Yeah.
pretty funky. And like he at his age, he was a little bit like me. Like he loves to play
Interesting.
basketball, and like basketball was my first love since about that age, right? And so we could even like again be talking trash to each other, like, "Oh, let's get out on this court. We find some time to get out on this court. I'm gonna school you," and he'd be like, "Please," you know. And so we had the
Who's better?
banter
Who's
going.
better?
Yeah, we had the banter going, and again, his parents are amazing.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I think we they're gonna be excited to see the finished feature film project as well.
So that's also a feature film.
No, I mean,
Oh,
they're
the
gonna be
doc
excited to
sorry,
see
the
him
documentary.
in the documentary. Yeah,
Mhm,
yeah.
mhm.
Because they haven't seen the whole thing yet. So all they've seen is Daredevil so far, and yeah, that was fun. You know, it was a serious film, and again, small, tiny crew, and we just figured it out. And you learn every project you learn,
Mhm,
and that's one of the best parts about making things. It's not easy, but yeah, we had
mhm,
a good time.
mhm. All of those little challenges too, I think, are actually what kind of lends the seasoning or, like, the flavor to the piece, you know what I mean? It's like you have to do, like, workarounds, and then those workarounds end up sometimes being really, really cool.
Hmm. Yeah, when you have to improvise, some amazing things can happen for sure. And even like where the documentary is at, all these years later, and I call my people call them production companies because we have what other name is there? We don't make any money. I don't make any money, but I call
Mhm.
it production companies, special menu production, because I try to think of my creations and my films as if you happen to be at a theater or if you're at the restaurant that night, there's a special menu. You walk in that night, you get the special menu, chef's special menu. Tomorrow night, the menu might not be here, so enjoy it. you know,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's like um, there was this like Paul McCartney song that was on the Vanilla Sky soundtrack in 2001. And I remember seeing that film when I was like 17. It was like the only Tom Cruise film that was a box office flop. But I liked the film, and Paul McCartney had a lyric in the song the title song Vanilla Sky, where it went, "The chef prepares a special menu for your delight. Oh my!
Yeah.
Tonight we fly so high in the vanilla sky." And then when I was young, I was like, if I ever start a production company, I'm gonna call it Special Menu Productions. But like
Yeah.
even with the documentary now, it's like we're kind of like in our own season of The Bear. If you know the show,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the TV show, it's like meaning we're gonna serve up like quite the 5 course meal, if you will. That's Special Menu Productions, right? But um, the film, we're trying to launch it, so it's like we're opening a restaurant in the in and we're inviting in the audience into like not only this world of unique sensory experience, like eating delicious food, but also like mixing feelings and emotion with fantasies. I think yeah, no, I think there's just metaphors with the food stuff and even like the flavors and textures combined
Mhm,
in a dish, right? You have that in a
mhm.
film. Or I like to put that in a film. Um, and it's part diary, part self-help for me because it's a personal doc, you know? So it's been fun.
Yeah, yeah. I totally get that too because I also use my work for, like, processing whatever is going on with me. So, I
Mm,
connect, and I do food in my projects. Speaking of
look at
food,
that. Yeah.
yeah. We're all cooking it up, we're all cooking it up.
Yes.
I was gonna ask you too, this is just an aside, but are you familiar with the Instagram page Shitty Rigs?
You know, uh I've heard of it and I've
Mhm.
maybe seen 1 or 2 clips. What's where they got taped together fucking cameras and stuff like that and
Yeah, they basically, like, they put together whatever contraption they need to, like, get the shot that they need.
to get the shot. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen like a clip or 2 here and there and I remember laughing. I don't remember following it because I'm afraid of overload, but
Yeah.
I remember laughing out loud the 1 or 2 times I did see it.
Yeah, it's so easy to, like, relate to when you do DIY work. I was just gonna
Mhm.
ask you if you'd submitted anything or, like, what from your projects you would submit to shitty rigs.
Oh, for sure, like, I mean, well, let me try to think of something actually interesting. I just know that, I mean, in my first ever short film, we didn't have a dolly or what, we skateboarding, man, booty on the skateboard,
Yeah.
cameraman on the skateboard in the bar, pushing them by the shoulders. We've done wheelchairs. We've like as dollies.
What works the best as a DIY dolly? I feel like the
I
wheelchair would
mean,
work pretty well because it's, like, sort of a smooth glide.
wheelchair was fine. Skateboard worked for where we were. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's more things I'm just not thinking of where
Mhm.
we had to improvise, and I know there's like some really good ones that I'm just drawing a blank on, even in the documentary. But I think oh, I got it. It's not
You're like,
like a
"Of
shitty
course."
rig. It's not a shitty rig story, but I think it's like in that like uh-oh world. And we were shooting part of these fictionalized scenes. And again, we're in the woods, buggy, muggy, 98 degrees last July. And we've got Henry, he's 14, child actor. This is the third day of this 3-day shoot. Everything's going great, crew's great. Not huge crew, but small but great crew. We show up, we're getting ready to start shooting the first scenes. It's it's already hot. Our energy is should be high though. We're just starting. And Henry's energy is just not like he's still good, but his energy is just like not where we need it to be, and we don't know why. And part of it is he's just a kid, you
Mhm.
know.
Yeah, yeah.
So we gotta figure it out. We gotta figure this out, right? So we're
Mhm.
and
Somebody
then
get some electrolytes for that guy.
I'm like the day before we were shooting in the theater and backstage, I remember going backstage to give him a note. And backstage, when I went to give him the note, because he was kind of the only one back there, we'd have him come through this door where we're all out here doing whatever we're doing. And I went backstage to give him a note, and I looked on the ground, and there's like 3 empty candy wrappers, like like Rolodex wrappers where there's multiple candies in each wrapper.
Oh, I see.
And he had just like gnawed and chewed through all that candy. And I was like, it was like a flashback I was having while we're in the woods where I realized, oh shit. And I like screamed like I hit up like I think my photographer, my set photographer, Keith. I was like, Keith, because earlier I saw Keith, he had some candy. I was like, Keith, where are you? And I'm like screaming out because we're in the woods, there's out the road, there's safety and all this. And Keith was like, what's up? I was like, you got some candy on you? He's like, yeah, yeah. I was like, give me all that candy right now. And I gave the candy to Henry. I was like, you want some candy? He was like, yeah, sure. And then like we were
If
giving
I
him pep
must.
talk. We were giving him pep talks up until that point because we're just trying to keep the limited time we have flowing.
Yeah.
He ate that candy and boom,
He
he
was
was
he was
back.
back. He was back, yeah.
If you're working with a child actor, load
Bring
them up on
candy.
candy, and very intentionally so, not just like have it at craft services. Like make sure they have candy.
That's hilarious. That's a good takeaway from child actor work. You have, this is switching gears a little bit. You have another project, Mexico is Hell for Black Migrants.
Mhm.
What is this film project about, and what were your objectives?
Yeah, that is like in a way, it's like a short documentary, like 12 minutes, but it wasn't intended to be that. At first, I do a little bit of work in Black immigration defense with the Black Alliance for Just Immigration, aka Baji, here in the U.S. And sometimes we're talking to people in other countries and Black migrants in other countries, and we had gone down to Mexico 2 or 3 times to Tapachula in particular, which is like bordering Guatemala and Mexico. And it's a city in down there, and I went down there just for like a couple days, trying to learn more about what was going on. And people make the treacherous journey through the Darien Pass, Darien Gap, from African countries, Central American, South American countries, just to get to Mexico to journey toward the U.S. And We were learning over some time that a lot of Black migrants on that journey kind of get held up in Tapachula and aren't allowed to advance on their journey through Mexico as they continue to try to make it to the US. So it's almost like you need kind of like a certain documentation to continue your journey
Mm, mhm,
as a migrant. And that documentation, it was either never given to disproportionately never given to Black migrants, or even when given and they head out because they had the documentation to continue their journey, they'd be harassed and stopped, and the documentation would be ripped up, and then all other torturous things would happen along the way,
mm,
disproportionately toward Black migrants. And in the city of Tapachula, they weren't even allowed to advance most often. So you're just now have a bunch of Black migrants trapped in the city.
mm,
It was like a prison with no walls, and it's even nicknamed instead of Tapachula, it's nicknamed Trapachula
mm,
because they're just stuck. And
mm,
all of that systematic uh, limitations placed on these people come down from the top, which means the United States, who's incentivizing whatever other officials, government or otherwise, or people in the business of this oppression, all incentivized by the U.S. government. And at the time we were down there, it was mostly incentivized by the Biden administration. So I was just down there to learn more about what was going on and hear some of the stories of some of these people's journeys. And like again, I didn't spend a ton of time down there, but I was with one uh person, Ruben, and he was telling me a bit of his story and how he'd been journeying to try to make it to the US. And so I documented some of that. And that's a little bit of what you see in that. Um, he eventually made it to the US, and I actually met up with him in New York where he's living, which I filmed some of that too. I just had never really planned to. I was thinking about the entire story and the issue systematically and how it's a much larger story, and I wanted to maybe make it a documentary one day. But it would just take more planning and prep to like kind of execute that.
yeah.
But in the meantime, that little short piece I had just made for kind of us internally, a film festival like the Pan African Film Festival in Los Angeles wanted to screen it last January 2025. So they were like, "We want to screen your short documentary." I was like, "Well, I wasn't calling it a short documentary, but if you're gonna call it a short documentary, and then people are gonna see it publicly, and that's a good thing. Let's do it."
Yeah.
And so yeah, it definitely again informative. It's an issue tip of the iceberg what I show, but it's a major unfortunate issue happening down there. And yeah, I think there's still work to be done again on the ground with supporting organizations and community collaborations on trying to make it the journey more feasible for all people immigrating through. And it's been interesting because there's been people who trying to get to the U.S. to even be let in for asylum reasons, etc. For all that time, and they then like even I think in my piece they're noticing because the Ukraine Russia war broke out at that time. There's Black migrants down there telling me on camera like, oh yeah, they're just letting Ukrainians who have settled before the war in Mexico, who had a whole life in Mexico, they're just letting them cross the border like, here you go ahead.
Wow.
And so that's kind of like a spit in the face from the governments of these people who've endured like while in Mexico, who have endured, particularly while in Mexico, so much worse,
Mm,
and who are still not allowed to cross or even like make the journey to cross, right?
mhm, mhm.
And so yeah, that's an important that I still think about like, and we still like work with folks down there as an organization at Baji, and yeah, we don't plan on we plan on those relationships continuing to try to we're after justice always for uh, safety and protection for immigrants.
Are you gonna screen it anytime soon?
I don't think so. Maybe like public functionary does open screen.
Mhm.
Maybe they try to do it once a month, but in general they do it frequently enough. I've shown like they also like collaborate with a film festival here called Cine Filmu.
Say that again?
Cine Filmu. It's I might not be pronouncing it perfectly, but it's CINEFILMU. FILMU. So it kind of looks like Cine Film U, but they don't pronounce it U, right? And they are going to be in their third year, I want to say, this year, this newer film festival in Minneapolis, St. Paul. So I screened Daredevil there last year.
Mhm,
But open screen at Public Functionary, it's like open mics, but for film projects or visual projects, right?
mhm.
They just had one last night, May 21st. And yeah, maybe I don't. It's funny because I didn't think to show it in more recent, all the bullshit happening here,
I mean,
all the
it
messed
seems
up things.
really quite relevant.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I mean, it's just it's so deep in this bigger project that
Yeah, sure.
now you've reminded me, Tommy. you know,
Tommy.
so yeah, I think we could do that and get a little conversation going. Because yeah, there's a whole lot more information that obviously is not in that little piece that is conversation worthy, like you say, at any point, and especially now. So yeah, you're right. Thank you.
Well, let us know when it happens.
For sure.
In addition to your film work, and I think you mentioned this earlier in the conversation, you also have a podcast called Weapon of Choice. Can you tell us about
Mhm.
that, and who are you interviewing in there, and what are some memorable moments from the show?
Oh, taking me my mind back. Yes, Weapon of Choice podcast was I created that and named it to honor like Gordon Parks, who was what I argue is the first Black Renaissance man, if there ever was one. Um, his autobiography, A Choice of Weapons, is probably the first like thorough non children's book I ever read when I was like a little boy,
Mhm,
and he's kind of like, yeah, I kind of look up to him for his photography work, his writing, poetry, all of it, filmmaking. He even composed classical music, played professional basketball. So it's just all these things I was interested in since I was a child. This dude did back in the 50s, 60s, 70s when life was much harder for a black man in this country. So I always admired that and his pursuit of his creativity, which he had to, be innovative and also resilient along the way. And I moved out when I was 14 years old, and so sometimes resilience is just thrown in your lap, or the necessity to be more resilient is sometimes thrown in your lap in the way. And he actually left the home when he was 14. Gordon Parks did, and the place he left to was Minnesota.
mm,
And so yeah, I mean, I've got three Gordon Parks themed tattoos on my left arm
wow.
that are pretty large. And so Weapon of Choice came from that, the title. And I just wanted to interview artists at the intersection of, creativity and who also have an eye towards justice, right? And I started that with my co-creator, co-host Andrew Benda, who's a great artist and musician, who he's from Michigan, lived here for a lot of years that we spent time making film projects together even. He
Mhm,
lives back in Michigan now, but shout out to Andrew. We made that. We did 3 seasons, so long form interviews. I'm into that, and
case in
we
point.
did three. We did 3 seasons. The pandemic, when it first hit, I did like an Instagram little series I called "Artists Coping in COVID."
Mm, mhm,
Um, yeah, I might have done a dozen of those episodes and maybe only published like 8 of them. But I just felt the need. I just missed the in the room energy,
mhm,
and so I kind
yeah,
of just, yeah, in a way, just put the podcast down. As you know, it's a lot of work too, and when
yeah.
I was not funded. I had like some Patreon subscribers, maybe $100 a month, which went a long way. But eventually, yeah, just I think I think most of the conversations don't really have a shelf life. I think if you go back and listen to, there's dozens of episodes, a few dozen probably. I think, yeah, there's also some great stuff and some familiar names that you might know that a lot of people, if they go, on, Apple Podcasts or Spotify or SoundCloud, will recognize a lot of artists and cultural workers who have been doing some amazing things kind of in that span of time, even in the
Mhm,
last 10, 15 years,
mhm. I did see some
including,
because there's, like, some photographs there too that you could see, and I saw
yeah,
some familiar faces for sure. And it's national,
yeah.
right? It's not just local.
yeah, I started it in 2018, and if I saw an artist I wanted to interview, I just like find a way to try to go to their city, fly there,
Mm,
and like so if I saw 3 or 4 artists in New York, I'd just be like, okay, let me schedule all of y'all for these three
yeah,
days
line them
and
up.
just fly out there to do our best, right? We would do our
Mhm.
best. I mean, one artist we met on the flight to New York and ended up interviewing her that night.
Wow.
And it was just crystal clarity, an amazing artist who just happens to be my closest and dearest friend in New York since then for the last eight
Wow.
years.
How cool.
And it was like an empty flight, like 5 people on the whole flight. So we just happened to sit down next to each other. It is even crazier story of how we met. But yeah, like I love talking to people, or if like an artist was on tour, like with a book tour, and they be in Minneapolis, I'd be like, I'd hit up their person or their assistant and be like, yo, or I'd hit them up, I've interviewed plenty of artists from just shooting them a DM, you know?
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it was joy to make, and friends sometimes ask me, "You're gonna get it going again?" I'm like, "I don't know if I can. I don't know. I just don't know if I have the vigor at the moment." So,
Yeah,
um, it's
yeah.
near and dear to my heart, and I keep paying for the platforms to keep it on, broadcast, so to speak, so that if anyone wants to go back to it, I think the conversation is there's a lot in there. Like if you are an artist, or if you want to know how artists think that are outside of the more commercial, empirical, you know, space,
Mhm.
there's a lot of those in there, from local Twin Cities artists to folks around the country. Uh, I can't remember to interview people outside of the U.S. Probably, but just drawing a blank right now.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think the same thing about in terms of, like, even though you had that podcast a while ago, there's still so much that you can glean from re-listening or from listening, um, just as of their story, and then it actually kind of, like, builds the context of where we are now,
Hmm.
artistically and socially and, you know, politically and, like, how artwork drives movements, you know?
And yeah, I mean, back to the immigrant justice. Uh, for the first ever band that I interviewed for Weapon of Choice was, again, like, spur of the moment. I'm looking like, oh, what bands are in town tonight? And this ain't promotion of bands in town. I was just asking myself the question. And I saw that this, like, well, they went by, they're called like a bi punk band because they're bisexual and bilingual.
Mm,
Downtown Boys, right?
mm,
They're out of
mm,
Providence, Rhode Island. And I just saw they're playing at what's the club that shut down that's over by Cedar Riverside, Triple Rock, I think. And it shut down shortly after that. But that was our first ever episode, even though we had our I think we had our first episode scheduled. And then I saw that, I was
mhm.
like, oh, I just reached out, I DM'd them. They were like, "Oh, we got a show. Come through. We'll do it after the show." I'm like, they're
So
super
fun.
indie, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And they also have a new album coming out. They don't make a lot of albums, but they're like putting out another album like any day now. Downtown Boys, 2
You mean like
words.
any day
They're
now?
like May or June. Yeah, yeah. So
2026.
like 2026. Yeah. So they're Downtown Boys, 2 words. They're a super dope band, but they're
Yeah,
also culture workers and like real ass radical revolutionary organizers too.
cool.
Coming from a worker justice space and then some. And so we hit them up and they said, come through to our show. We go to the show. Again, I never knew this band existed, never seen them perform, never heard their music. We're enthralled by their music and their message and what they have to say and their
Yeah,
talent and their skill. And it was
yeah.
our first ever episode. Like, we're back tucked in this tiny green room. It felt real like MTV Raw. Like,
I
it,
mean,
and it
that
was just
sounds awesome.
like, it was like live. It was so
Yeah,
energetic, and
yeah,
that is like whenever I say, people want to start with the podcast, they're gonna go through and see the names they like and click those episodes. Well, I'm like, damn it, go to the beginning because you get this amazing impromptu interview, but also the genesis. When I opened the show, we talk about why we created the show in the first place.
mhm.
Now I'm having really fond memories of doing that.
Aw.
Yeah.
Maybe you should restart it.
Oh,
No, I know. I know,
yeah.
I know. It's a big lift.
Everybody give me what I need to get this other stuff on my plate. I'll gladly restart it.
Tommy, if people want to experience your work or learn more about you or listen to your podcast or watch a film,
Mm.
where's a good place for them to find that information?
Yeah, you could start with if you want to see some film stuff. There's a little bit on the Vimeo page, right? So just go to Vimeo, Google Vimeo Special Menu Productions, 3 words. Start there with that. I mean, specialmenuproductions.com is a website, but I haven't updated it in years. But it does, show you that there's the podcast, Weapon of Choice Podcast. Again, Google Weapon of Choice Podcast or go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or SoundCloud. You can get the entire 3 seasons plus the bonus episodes where sometimes we'd go out in the streets during protests and interview folks in the street. So there's some of that too. And I think, you don't know my name, film.com. If you want to learn a little bit more about the film, join the newsletter. The newsletter, you'll be able to learn even more than you will on the website. You don't know my name, film.com.
Mhm.
And then like the Instagram for you don't know my name is just the acronym YDKMNDOC. So you don't know my name, Doc, but the acronym, right?
Mhm, and that is the 7-year documentary project.
Ooh. Yeah, you don't know my name's like a riff of the Alicia Keys song for those of us who are old enough to remember that. And it's like, it's a love story, but family, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you can just find ways to all of that. And on the Vimeo, you can find my weird little short films. Well, Daredevil's not public, but it'll be public probably in the next week or two
Okay.
on that very Vimeo page.
Mhm. And hopefully, when you do have your screenings coming up, you'll be posting on that Instagram page?
We'll definitely post on the Instagram page. I think if you want to be informed ahead of Instagram, because I'm not a huge social media person, the newsletter, you'll get more in-depth information. It'll still be concise, but you'll kind of be ahead of the curve and knowing where a screening might pop up. And if there's tickets or availabilities, that would kind of come your way through the newsletter, maybe
Gotcha.
even before Instagram. So, you know, consider
That's
yourself a VI. Consider yourself an automatic VIP if you join the newsletter. We're simple. I'm easy over here. I'm easy.
and tell people again, where they can sign up for the newsletter.
Yes, at the documentary films webpage, which is you don't know my name film.com.
Beautiful, thank you. Tommy, thank you so much. This was really fun to talk to you and get a little bit closer to your work. Thank you.
Oh, I mean, again, thanks for having me on. You do such amazing work as well, Mary, and I look forward to, I have so many questions for you, but I know I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I had to hold back. But we'll get there. We'll get
We'll
there.
get there. Over coffee.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And to the audience, thank you for listening. This has been another edition of the Sanguine Arts Locavart podcast.